Hello, everybody. It is 10:01 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday, November 9th, 2016. And welcome in here to the Earthquake 3D live stream. I'm your host, Dutchsinse. And we daily recap the events that strike around the world, and I do issue semi-daily and weekly earthquake forecasts for areas to watch for new movement to strike. So, that being said, we need to go into a few areas that were struck today that we talked about last night. One of the areas right here at the middle point east of Papua New Guinea being struck by a 6.0 downgraded to 5.9 earthquake, very deep again, so this is right in between our other two deep earthquakes, measuring in at 446 kilometers, over 320 miles deep. And guys, that's another deep earthquake on top of the other two deep earthquakes. So, the 4.3 caused a larger earthquake. Both 4.3s on either side, and it's in pretty much equal depth. This means we now have three different sets of deep earthquakes on top of the fourth that's up to the north from a day prior. Let me get that on the map here so you can see it. This is insane. Oh, I'm sorry, 5, because we have to also include South America. So now we have 5 points across the whole Pacific that have all moved at least 400 kilometers deep, or over 300 miles deep. This one now measuring out at 5.9. Well, what does that mean? It means we're going to see shallower, larger movement when this is all said and done, moving down below. First things first, though, things seem to be moving pretty heavy down below in the area called the asthenosphere, which is a complex word to just describe the semi-melted magma down below the plates. So, deep 5.9 on top of the other deep 4s that struck a day prior, and then following that up, like we talked about last night, new movement would strike to the north as compensation for what was happening to the south. And as expected, coast of Japan, now this is a little bit north of where I was looking at. Again, it's pretty close. Coast of Honshu, which is the exact same spot that we had our 9.0 megaquake back in 2011. I just talked about that in yesterday's updates. I did a couple updates yesterday and talked about that. So, all in all, movement right in the middle point where we were talking about, we're going to have to watch Australia. Australia, look, guys, you guys have to watch. We also have to watch to the north in our silent zones. We'll get into that in a second, but let's get into the rest of the earthquakes that struck, which takes us over to Europe. Now check it out. On both sides of Italy, this is pretty rare actually, but on both sides of Italy, equidistantly spaced by about 270 miles to the east and about 280 or 290 miles to the northwest, both struck by 4s. 4.1 on one side, 4.2, some measuring in at 4.4 on the other. Well, guys, we issued a warning last night talking about the potential for a 4.6 in central Italy, right? Well, look what struck in central Italy. A swarm of 2s and 3s topping out at mid-range 3, either side, almost exactly the same distance, 270 one way, 280 the other. Both 4s, and if you take the 4.4 and add it in with the 4.1, that takes us to 4.5, 4.6. Boom. So it hit on both sides of Italy. That's good news. It means the pressure is spreading out. It's not just going up the plate boundary anymore. We talked about this last night, that apparently this spot is finally starting to settle down. That 70 centimeters of movement, or 27.5 inches of rise and fall that occurred there, is tremendous, first of all. But it's finally starting to settle out a little bit. It's allowing for the pressure to transfer out to the nearby fault zones. We're not seeing the plate boundary in direct flux right now. But I would like to draw your attention to the earthquake to the west. Look where it struck. It struck just west of Torino. Now, what goes up into Torino? Anybody know? Now, I've shown this in many past videos. I don't know if you guys have seen it, so I'll just go ahead and put it on the screen here now, just so we can all be on the same page for new viewers, old viewers. Okay, So our earthquake here striking over in Montenegro. By the way, Montenegro was the agency that reported the 5 the other day, with the Mystery 5 out in Siberia. Now Montenegro's hit, right? Well, that's weird. Well, anyways, take a look at the red line that you see on the screen here. Okay, so we have our swarm, or at least multiple earthquakes with a 4.4 striking here. Well, that put pressure to the west and northwest. Pressure to the west hit our swarm location, which kicked up the earthquakes into mid-range 3, but most of the pressure transferred up the plate boundary this time. And where does the plate boundary dead into? See it? Dead ends right into Torino. This is from the USGS, this plate boundary map. So let's get back over to the earthquakes. Look at where the earthquake struck. Right at the end of the plate boundary. So we have a 4.4 strike here, then a swarm of 2s and 3s, which makes a little steam lost off of that pressure, and the leftovers off that 4.4 go up to the north, strike right at the plate boundary. That's what happened. Pretty cool, huh? I mean, it's good news for central Italy. Let's hope that keeps happening now. Now, for the people in North Italy, that's not good. But for the people in central Italy who are trying to recover, it's good news for you. It means that the pressure is transferring. You can pretty much bet on it now. If we see earthquakes striking north of this 4.4, most likely the pressure will transfer around the area and go to the plate boundary. That's a little rule I'm going to apply going forward that I've noticed starting to take place since this all began. Once it settles out, that rule will go away, I think, because I don't think this is going to be an issue next month or 2 months from now. I think finally this area will settle out, and another area along the plate boundary, of course, will be hit, but this particular location will finally stop moving once that pressure is allowed to subside for a few days. Maybe even if we can go a week where the pressure is allowed to subside in this area, we'll see the swarm die out completely. And that would be good news. So, what did we see today? We were looking for a 4.6, and we got a 4.4 and a 4.1 on both sides of the plate boundary with a renewed swarm going back up into mid-range 3, topping out, I think, at 3.3. This was actually 3.5 earlier, okay? So, there it is. Both sides struck. Going into tomorrow, what did we see happen today? Take a look at what happened back to the east. A new round of 4s. Now, of course, that 4.4 was last night in Iran. You remember this. You see the 4.4 down here, right? Okay, we talked about that, and that would push into Europe. And look what struck, a 4.4. This is both right along the plate boundary that I just showed you. We'll show it to you one more time. Here, take a look one more time. Whoops, wrong earthquake there, okay? There we go. Now, you guys have seen that, right? Okay, good. Now the plate boundary is in red, and we go over to the east and look in Iran. Iran is the earthquake struck right along the plate boundary there. 4.4 there first, then 4.4 over to the east where we see the star. Or I'm sorry, over to the west, coming from the east, pushing to the west. So, it's pretty straightforward. What do we watch for going into tomorrow? Well, guys, we got a new 4 back behind here in China. We've got a few 3s that have struck today across Turkey and Greece. If you add the 4.1 in with the 3s, that takes us back to 4.1. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this at this point. The pressure transfers to the west, and if you have a 4.1 striking over in China, North Afghanistan, Iran, it's going to put 4.1 type pressure to the west. And it doesn't diminish much. It'll hit South Europe and release in a 4.1. Or similar, 4.0 might lose 0.1 momentum across the plate boundary. But it hits, the pressure hits the plate boundary and travels along it for thousands of miles. And it hits our sticking points, which in this case, you can see it on the screen here now. Now that there's just one 4.1 and a couple 3s, again, guys, tomorrow, unless something else changes right now, we're only looking for a 4.1 to strike. Now, I mentioned 2 days ago that these deep earthquakes are going to cause larger earthquakes to develop and press over to the west. Well, as far as I can tell, that hasn't happened yet. But I haven't checked the back-end feeds for all the different seismological pages. I had a very busy day today that I wasn't able to do that. Normally, during the day, I might be able to peruse the feeds and see if any mystery earthquakes were reported. Maybe I should do that now while I've got you live on the screen. You guys want to go take a quick look? Let's do it. Let's go take a quick look on the seismologist page, see what showed up today, if we have any larger earthquakes that showed up that are just not showing on the map. Okay, and I'm just going to look for 4s and 5s. Okay, here we go. We've got our earthquakes in Italy. That's to be expected. All right, France, Italy. Looks like 3s in Greece. Okay, going down the list. 4s in China. Another 4 in China, not just one, but 2 of them. So we have 2 4s back in China, not 1. That increases our likelihood of larger earthquake activity in Europe, guys. Okay, here's our Japan earthquakes that are registered. That's normal. And we'll go down to the bottom of page 1. I'm looking at magnitudes here only. Another 4 in China. That's 3 4s in China, not 1. Big difference. Big difference. Okay, and then we get back down to the earthquakes that struck in Montenegro. We'll go to page 2. Anything else standing out? I don't see anything else standing out as odd or missing. But when I see missing earthquakes in China, man, oh man. Okay, a few smaller earthquakes in Kazakhstan. Nothing that we would really take into account. All right, well, that's 2 pages worth of earthquakes that I just quickly browsed over, and we checked that to see if there's any reported earthquakes, and lo and behold, out here in China. I'm not going to bother to go look up the coordinates. We'll assume they are in central to western China. That seems to be the spot where they're not giving us earthquake reports from the USGS or Europeans. So that means 3 different 4s, not 1, which takes us up to 4.3, 4.4, not to 4.1. So going into tomorrow, let's adjust our watch to be 4.4. That's again based upon 3 different above 4 earthquakes. You add those together, rough addition, 3 different mid-range 4s, low 4s are going to add up to a 4.4. Okay, so I mean, again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this because we already had a 4.4 today on one side, a 4.1 on the other, and we'll go right back down into the middle of this to issue the warning for the area. Now, keep in mind, 270 miles to some people might seem like a huge distance. Other people might seem like just a row of a rock. You might drive that to work every day. Who knows? In the United States, that's a short distance. But to people in Europe, I know I would not consider this an earthquake forecast hit for me. I would consider this a miss. So I warned last night for a 4.6 in South Europe going into central Italy. Well, South Europe was struck. That part of the forecast is true. And the magnitude, that part is true. If you add, again, the 4.4 and 4.1 add up to a 4.6. We've explained that before. 10 4s equals 1 5 and so on. Well, and then the swarm kicked back up in Italy. Some people say, oh, you nailed it. No. I would expect that 4 points, if I'm going to call it for the forecast, I would expect that 4.6 to have hit central Italy. Now, it's spread out on both sides. It's a good sign. It means pressure is going out in different directions at this point, and it means the fault is settling down, but that becomes highly unpredictable for me. But I know you guys don't care about that, but just explaining to you that that's why I wouldn't consider this an earthquake forecast hit, even though 4 is hit right around the earthquake epicenter, okay? So if you're in Italy, I'm going to tell you, into tomorrow, you have the potential for what just happened today. And it could strike, and again, on the forecast angle here, I'm going to give you about up to a 90% chance that it would strike you in central Italy by tomorrow because the other 2 areas on both sides already moved. So those areas have now been hit. Most likely, since the swarm's still going there, the middle area will compensate. Either or a swarm. Could be 10 different 3s equals 1 4. I mean, you could see that. So we have to hope for a swarm, kind of like what struck today. If you took all the earthquakes that struck today at the spot in central Italy, added them up, it would equal approximately a 4.0 earthquake to begin with. Because it takes 10 threes to equal 1.4, it takes 10 twos to equal 1.3, and you have definitely that many earthquakes that struck today. But again, we are looking for a larger release because we have a new push coming in from Western China. And where's the push in Western China coming from, guys? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's our deep earthquakes pushing up the whole Pacific plate right now, and it's not done moving yet. It's still going on down there. Look, we're not done yet. The whole southern hemisphere has now moved at about 400 kilometers down below the plate. Plates, plural, South America, all around Australia, going over to the Indo-Australian plate. The only other spot that we would, if the whole southern hemisphere to move, we would have to see another earthquake like over here somewhere. Africa, Madagascar, somewhere down here, some kind of earthquake that would strike. That would complete the southern hemisphere. Then you could honestly say the whole southern hemisphere has moved in the past 2 days on a deep level. And that would not be good for the northern hemisphere, which is going to compensate out for that movement at a shallow level and all the in-between points. Every single in-between point is going to be hit by a shallower, larger earthquake. Each one. Look at the in-between points between our deep earthquakes. Oh, let's get the other one on there. Hold on. Get the other deep earthquake on there. Okay, now we have all of our deep earthquakes on the map. Let's wait for it to refresh. Raised high off the globe and go to our middle points between these deeper earthquakes. And you start to see, wow, okay, we have the potential in several populated areas that could be hit. Speaking of several populated areas that could be hit, let's turn down the earthquakes for the last 48 hours. Now, last night we had our 3.6 South Central California to the west near the coast. We also saw a swarm break out in Southern California and to the north. All the signs are there. We put a 72-hour watch on it. This is 48 hours. Tomorrow would be go time if it's going to hit. Now, what's going to hit? We're looking for a 5 to be striking, most likely in the next day. By tomorrow night, I should be reporting on some noteworthy earthquake or noteworthy activity that picked back up in northwest California to the coast of Oregon. Oregon is most likely in the mix for the next few days. So I know there's a lot of people out in Oregon right now, freaking out and protesting over some stuff. Well, guys, you need to be worried about some earthquake activity coming your way here in a minute because you're the prime spot. We see earthquakes creep up the California coast. Swarms break out at all of our locations that are warning signs for coming movement off the coast. These locations that you see on the map here now, anytime you start to see stacks of earthquakes start to happen at them, that's a warning sign that we're going to see a larger earthquake off the coast. And I can explain why very quickly. Sum it up very quickly. Every location that you're looking at here, going from the swarm location up in Northern California, down to the swarm location in Central Eastern California, up to the swarm location in Northeast California, and down all the way down to the south in Southern California. Every single one of those areas that I just named, in between those points, this spot here as well, down at South Long Valley, every single one of them is a volcano. Now you can go look it up, you can take my word for it. I've shown it in so many other videos. My viewers are getting tired of me wasting their night every night showing it. But take my word for it, or go pull the coordinates from the USGS and look up these swarms, and you'll see the swarm I have highlighted right here at Volcano Peak. They have it at Cozo Junction. That's the Cozo Volcanic Field. Up to the north of Long Valley, we have the tip of Long Valley Caldera, going up to Mono Lake Supervolcano, Mammoth Mountain, Aurora Peak, Aurora Crater, and several other volcanoes right there. And that's where the swarm is happening, halfway up California. We get over to the east, all of these are underground nuclear test sites. At Pahrump, Nevada, going down to the south at Skull Mountain. Both of them spots where they've done underground nuclear tests, and you can see the craters in the ground. I mean, it's no secret. Those spots are fractured, and there's fractures in the crust. Get up to the north, this spot here, off the flanks of southeast Lassen. There's Sugarloaf Peak, Sugarloaf Buttes, and those are volcanoes, in case you guys wonder. Downeyville, if you want to look up the nearest by town that the USGS is triangulated from. All right? So every earthquake that I named here, going down to the south, this is Salton Sea Volcanic Buttes. See these earthquakes here to the west of Salton Sea? This is San Andreas Fault. And look at the progression. I mean, we see direct fault zone movement as well. I'll explain that. First, we see deep earthquakes happen over in the West Pacific. This then displaces the whole Pacific plate. It puts pressure on the west coast of the United States. Pressure builds on the west coast of the U.S., and it starts to displace areas to the east before the pressure releases. So, pressure is building and building and building here on the west coast right now, and it's currently pushing as far east as Utah and displacing all the dormant volcanoes going down the California-Nevada border, down to Southern California at Salton Sea. Then, after the volcanoes are displaced, we see pumping operations start moving, usually geothermal and oil and gas. All three will start showing earthquakes, and that's what the swarm is up here to the north of San Francisco. That's at Geysers, which is a geothermal pumping operation. Same with Salton Sea. Salton Sea volcano, geothermal pumping operation. So, first the volcanoes are hit, then the geothermal and oil and gas and pumping operations are hit. Then we see shallow movement all the way up at the fault zones. And once the fault zones start moving, that is the sign of the pressure becoming too great off the coast to the northwest. It's reached a breaking point. It can't go anywhere else. The pressure has come up, it's hit the volcanoes already, caused movement. It's come up further, hit the pumping operations, caused movement there. It's come up further, hit the fault zones, caused movement there. And what's beyond the fault zones? Up, nothing. It's the sky. So the pressure has nowhere to go. So it instantly backfills within just hours or less back up the coast. And you see the pressure that was causing it all finally release with a single earthquake. It's amazing. So the warning signs are there right now. And the size of the earthquake that's going to strike can also be determined by the size of the earthquakes that are striking interior to the coast, letting us know what's coming. You can add up all the earthquakes over the past 1 to 2 days, and you'll get your rough total for what's going to be striking off the coast. Well, we've seen a swarm of 3s and 2s. Well, if we add the 3s and 2s together with all the other smaller 1s and 0s, guys, this takes us back up to 5. Why 5? Why not upper 4? Well, we also have to take into consideration one other thing. The 5s that are progressing around the plate, which are happening right now. Deep 5.9, deep or shallow 4.9, shallow 5.1 in Japan. We've got 4 activity and mid 4 activity Central America and South America. That's all progressing around the plate over the past few hours. And if we look at the last 2 days, let's quickly do that. You'll be able to see the progression of earthquakes around the plate even extends more. And so California is kind of set. It's already ready to go. And once that 5 or 5.1, I mean, if a 4.9 hits, you got to give me a little credit, right? Okay, so if it goes 4.9, 5, 5.1, striking here off the coast, but we'll name it at a 5, again, because of the other 5 striking around the plate, that will then cause a similar sized earthquake, maybe a little bit of loss of momentum in the Midwest. So that 5 might go down to 4.7 or 4.8. And it will strike directly in the middle of the fracking operation that was already super fractured out. And it won't be at that well. No, it's going to be most likely over to the west because the pressure is going to be coming in from the west by northwest. So that puts it more like at the Kansas, the western Oklahoma and Kansas border region. A spot which hasn't itself super fractured. A new pressure point to the west of all this mess that's going on now. Okay? And that also, again, brings back into the question of Colorado and western Colorado, or I'm sorry, eastern Colorado, western Oklahoma. But we'll leave it at western Oklahoma right now. If it strikes South Colorado, so be it. But I'm leaning towards Colorado because it's going to, I'm leaning towards Oklahoma instead of Colorado because the pressure is going to be coming in from the west by northwest. It should push across North Colorado and hit that central western portion of Oklahoma. Don't mean to be too confusing there, but there we go. So central western Oklahoma, right at the border with Kansas. Watch out after the West Coast is hit. West Coast should be hit. I should be reporting on that by tomorrow night. Okay, so we'll see what happens. Also, down south, Central America, South America, you guys need to pay attention. First of all, I got reports that it's not on Volcano Discovery, but that Colima and Popo both sent off new blasts today. I guess I should go check. I mean, I went and checked earlier, but we should probably check again. Let's go to Volcano Discovery. You guys know how to do this, right? You want to check your eruptions? Go to Volcano Discovery. Of course, their ads are a little bit creepy or whatever. Yeah, there we go. We'll block their ads. All right, now let's go down the list. Here we go. Worldwide activity. Ooh, this is invasive. Again, guys, just, the ad block, it's going to be giving you all kinds of goofy stuff. And I don't know why they have those ads on there. I guess they're trying to make money. Okay, so Chivulek volcano in Kamchatka, Tucono in Halamahara, Fuego in Guatemala, Turrialba in Costa Rica, Sabancaya in Peru. All, again, continuous emission of steam and volcanic ash at Sabancaya in Peru, guys. But Fuego in Guatemala, that's Central America, guys. So see where these 4.6 and 4.5 struck off the coast of Guatemala to the west, northwest of Guatemala? Fuego's right in here. So Fuego erupting, but I got first-hand reports from viewers saying that there was new eruptive activity at Colima and Popo today, but no actual reports coming out. I don't know. I don't know if somebody's trying to give me false information or what, but I just do have to tell you, in case my Mexican viewers or anybody else who's in the area down there, maybe you could corroborate or not, but knowing that Fuego also blew today, and we have earthquake striking right next to it, means most likely they did, and they just didn't make it to the international news yet. So, now that we have a 4.6 and a volcanic eruption striking right next to each other, we have to watch over to the east. And this goes to my Puerto Rican viewers. How often do I name Puerto Rico, guys? Okay, Puerto Rico. Guys, listen up. With a volcanic eruption backed up by a 4.6, the volcanic eruption itself, I've said this many times before, to me, by my rough calculations, any volcanic eruption would be equal to at least a 5. Seismically speaking, a shallow 5. Just because of the hundreds or thousands of earthquakes that would be accompanying that magmatic movement and upheaval. Even if it's just a phreatic steam eruption, it's still going to be the equivalent of an upper 4, in my opinion. So, if that's the case, and I believe it is, then we would have a 5, because we have an actual blast occurring in Fuego, backed up by a 4.6, that would push to the east and cause a 5.1, 5.0 to 5.1. It would be more like 5.0 and 1/2, so let's round it up, 5.1. And it would be striking most likely somewhere very close to Puerto Rico, if not on land at Puerto Rico. Why in Puerto Rico? Why not to the east? Well, the areas to the east are already moving. They've already released some of that pressure. This is a new round of incoming pressure. And we're going to put a 72-hour watch on it, but it should strike within the first 48. Now, if it doesn't strike in the first 48, I will give it an additional 24, just because sometimes it takes 2 days for the pressure to transfer across the Cayman Trench. Cayman Trench is south of Cuba here. So again, keep watch for that. We don't normally have to issue warnings because when the earthquakes strike, they normally strike out to sea. They're normally in the 4 range. If they are in the 6 range, they strike over further to the east, out east of Barbados. But now we're watching in Puerto Rico itself. And again, above a 5, a 5-ish is enough to shake things up and scare people in Puerto Rico. So get the word out on that. We got enough time to get the warning out for the people in the Caribbean. And hope that I'm right on the magnitude. If I'm 1 magnitude wrong and it's 1 magnitude higher, then it goes up to 6.1 and everybody freaks. So I hope I'm right. I'm basing it on the magnitudes, but I also have to look at that volcanic eruption, which doesn't give me any magnitude. I have to assume what a magnitude would be with that. Okay? Now, South America. We talked about this last night. The next spot to begin showing movement would be South Colombia, at the Ecuador border. Now look what struck. New movement began. Finally began. It's been what, 2-3 days? 2 days? All right, well, there it is. Now it hit at the Ecuador border. It's just small, but it's the sign that the movement's going to begin there, and that's the next spot to be hit. It's our fulcrum point. It's between the two fours anyway, so not a big deal right now. But we're watching for it to strike. Like I said, fives are going to creep around the plate with all the deep earthquakes. So we only have this. I've told you this week is going to be creeping up, right? I said it's going to get large. Well, the first thing off the bat is a deep 5.9 over in the West Pacific. Now, volcanic eruptions and earthquakes right next to it in Central America, followed by movement beginning in North-South America. Okay, so our deep earthquakes are what we do not want to see. We have the potential for up to a 7.1 off this 5.1 down to the south in South America. Why do we have a potential for 7.1? Anytime there's a deep earthquake like this, a deep 5, you have to watch for a shallower, larger earthquake. And the shallower, larger earthquake can be 1 to 2 magnitudes larger than the deep earthquake. Well, you see it's a deep 5.1. So if it's 1 magnitude larger, that puts it to 6.1. If it's 2 magnitudes larger, it takes it to 7.1. Well, where's it going to strike? I'm more leaning for the 7.1 to be striking our silent zone, most likely. Well, again, guys, I've talked about this for the past several days, but it hasn't transpired yet. It'll be striking down, most likely, to the south. And it puts us down at the South Sandwich Islands. It has now been officially a week since any pressure has transferred down to the South Sandwich Islands. Now, again, like I said, up to the north, I told you guys last night as well. Look, Ecuador is going to see similar size movement, not 7.1, more like upper 5, lower 6. So they're not going to get out of it. It's just the larger movement should strike to the south. Why? Well, all the movement normally pushes down to the south and to the east, down to the South Sandwich Islands. So with the deep earthquake there, I mean, when we have a choice of a 50-50 on this, I would lean towards the south being struck with the larger and the northern part being struck with the lesser. However, the lesser is still going to be large. Okay, so there we go. What else do we have? Our middle points. We always watch for 1 to 2 magnitudes larger. Well, we have a deep 4.3, deep 4.7. Doesn't that mean a shallow 5.3 to 5.7 to 6.3 to 6.7? Yes, it sure does. Middle point. Same with the area to the west, the 5.9. 5.9 can lead to a 6.9 to 7.9. Where? Most likely in one of our nearby silent areas, middle point. Well, there's only 2 nearby silent areas, middle point. Both areas will be hit. Which area will be hit with the greater? Well, pressure always transfers to the west by northwest from the West Pacific. Well, what's west by northwest? That puts us between Philippines and the Izu Ridge. Halfway point near Guam, south of Japan, over to Philippines, mainland. I mean, that's not good. It's the middle point. I don't have to really even explain it to you. You can see it here on the screen. And it hasn't moved in how many days? Well, let's get okay, it's been 5 days since any movement at our middle point near Guam. Fissured between the two spots, you can already see the 20,000 foot drop off going south of Guam. 25,000 feet, I think, is how far that goes down. So it's a bend point. It's a fracture point. It's under tremendous pressure from all sides. This is going to spill over to Europe. We already talked about this. The activity that spread over to Europe today is a result of the previous activity a few days ago. So the activity in the Pacific is our main player for everyone on the planet. Whether you're in South Europe, or whether you're on the west coast of the U.S., or whether you're in the Midwest U.S. I mean, really, even if you're in the Midwest U.S., earthquakes in the West Pacific are something you need to pay attention to. That's going to cause movement on the West Coast, which, like a domino effect, is going to cause an earthquake at the fracking operations in your neck of the woods in the middle of the United States. They are related, and they happen back and forth between one another within 5 to 7 days' time or less. Within a week. It's amazing. I mean, some of these discoveries, guys, this flies in the face of everything. And I mean tearing out whole sections of the textbook and replacing it with entirely new content. That's what's going on at this point. But, I mean, we're just going where we're following our noses where the facts lead. Earthquakes are related across distances. Deep earthquakes cause shallow earthquakes far away. The asthenosphere is upwelling from a plasma core of the Earth. They said the core of the Earth was a solid metal ball. They were wrong. I mean, there's so many different things we could expound upon here that need to be adjusted. Plate tectonics is false. These were never connected. These are being pressed together. I mean, that alone right there says it all. I mean, you know, if the plates were never connected, then all of geology is wrong. And the plates were never connected. Then all of geology is wrong. Okay, it's just that simple. And so we have to correct those things, those errors, those mistakes, those suppositions, those dogmas, and that's kind of the fight that I'm running into online. So you guys know what to watch for now, okay? It's summed up very quickly when I don't take the time to, you know, show you the volcanoes and zoom in all the frac wells and everything. We can get this down to about 30 minutes long. I appreciate everybody getting the warnings out, and if you're in Italy, we should be glad the 4s struck on both sides. By tomorrow, you should have your 4 mixed in with that. Or a swarm equal to a 4, which will be just as noteworthy. You'll have, you know, multiple 3s, mid-range 3s, striking all day long, and you'll say, okay, there's the movement we were looking for. So, have a plan. Be prepared. If I'm even 1 magnitude off, a lot of these people will be screwed. No, I mean, I'm not trying to be flippant, but if I'm 1 magnitude off, if it goes from I'm looking for a 4 and instead a 5 hits in Italy, well, 5 is enough to really shake things up. Already damaged houses can have more damage. So I take it serious. I really do. And if we see any other earthquake strike over to the east of Europe, for instance, or if you see new activity develop in the Pacific, you see a huge earthquake strike in the Pacific, you're going to know on the West Coast, look, it's going to pick up here. There's no way around it. They're all connected. You see a large earthquake in Japan, it's connected. You'll see large earthquakes increase off the west coast of the U.S. You see a large earthquake in Japan, you'll see a large earthquake increase in South Europe. We are connected. The one thing we all share, guys, for real, the one thing we all have or there's 2 things we all have in common. The weather and earthquakes. I would dare say not even rain, because some places don't get rain. You know what I mean? Like, we have 2 things in common, weather and earthquakes. We all speak the same language, and we're all affected by it. Earthquake-wise, I mean. Okay, so be safe. Much love. Everybody, much love. If you're here in the United States, we beat the New World Order, at least at the first round of this title match. I want to congratulate everybody who didn't drink the earthquake juice. And that's all I've got to say. Don't drink the earthquake juice because, well, I think it might be a little unhealthy. The potential for you to get sick is tremendous. So whatever you do, don't drink the earthquake juice. Now, guys, also, if you like my work, if you like what I do on YouTube, if you like the content that I share, please consider giving to my fundraiser. There's nothing I can really say about it other than I'm very, very appreciative to all my viewers for everything that you guys have ever given me over the last 7 years. I don't know if that's, putting it mildly, but thank you to everyone who has given to me. Your donations have enabled me to be here full time as opposed to cutting down trees and doing carpentry. I would be out cutting down trees and doing carpentry instead of seismic forecasting if it weren't for my viewers. Because you guys know, YouTube shut me off again. I was shut off again. They deleted my views again, which means I don't get paid again. And it was for all that work on Italy. It was for all the forecasting on Italy, making the BBC News. My whole live stream was deleted, guys. All the thumbs, gone. All the views, gone. All your shares, gone. Go click them. They're dead. And it was terminated by YouTube. Deleted by YouTube. No explanation given. And so I don't get paid for the last, unless I save it as a video on my channel, which gets a couple thousand views. So my live stream, they've cut it again for no good explanation that I could ever find. Nobody sent me any contact, and they just turned it off yet once again. So if you like my work, please donate, because that's pretty much the only way I'll get ahead here on this crazy online world. Unless I wanted to sell something, and I don't want to sell anything. So, yeah. And I don't want corporate sponsors. The last thing I want is corporate sponsors who, I think personally, unless they give you a no-holds-barred sponsorship, say whatever you want. We don't care what you say whenever you say it, but no sponsor ever does that. So I'm not, I don't want corporate sponsorship, because they might be attacked or trolled or, whatever, and then they try to control your message or pull their sponsorship, and then you look bad and feel bad. So I want to just be free of that. If you like it, please give. If you don't, so be it. Keep watching anyways. I'll be here regardless for the next year or more, thanks to what people have already given. Peace out, guys. Much love. Have a plan. Don't be scared. Be prepared. And that means look around your house and know what to do when an earthquake strikes. Basics: something's falling, you feel a big earthquake happening, not just a little one. You feel a little one, you can just sit there. But if you feel a large shaking starting, go to a place where you can get underneath something sturdy. If you don't have something sturdy to get under, you might want to look into buying something that's sturdy to get under. Make a good investment. And you might want to look around your house and take a look at the ways of getting in and out of your house and plan so those areas are not blocked. Let me give you a good example. I was at a friend's house, and by their front door was a giant coat thing, but it was wood, really heavy. And I'm looking at it and I go, is that secured? And it's not. And if it fell, earthquake, it's top heavy too, it's real tall. And if an earthquake struck and that sucker falls over, it's going to be blocking their door for them to try and run out. If they need to get out, then they have to run to the back door, right? So little things like that, you can move it over a couple feet. So if it does fall, it's not going to block the door. Not saying you need to get rid of it, just move it over a couple feet so it doesn't fall in front of your door, right? Okay, so little preps can save your life. That's the kind of prepping I'm talking about. You don't need the stockpiles of food and water unless you want to be a survivalist. A prepper is someone who prepares for any situation. A survivalist is someone who stockpiles food and water and all that stuff. You should mix survivalism with preparing. You should. You should have a little bit of survival worked into your prep plan. But a prep plan is just that, a plan of what you'll do if an earthquake strikes. You work it out with your kids. You got kids, you say, okay, you're at home, earthquake strikes, do you know what to do? And talk to them about it. Set up a way to communicate, email, text, something like that they can get into when all the phone lines are out. I want you to think about these things, especially if you live in one of the areas like Italy or Western California. I know people talk about it, but when was the last time you actually developed your plan? I'm not trying to scold you or lecture you, but just think about it. When was the last time you really dusted off your plan and said, you know what? I think I'm going to follow Dutch's advice here and make a little plan, see what I do. Most people say, yeah, I know what I'll do, but they don't really do it. So I just want you guys to really do it. I've taken the time to with my wife. I've got bug out bags and stuff like that. Maybe I'll show that sometime. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll show that. Speaking of showing stuff, guys, I got 2 more packages today at my P.O. box. One came from a place called Sutter Creek, California, from Ann, and another one came from Walsenburg, Colorado, from D. Danky. Danky shipping me something from Colorado. Uh-oh. Shipping me some Danky from Colorado. Uh-oh. Don't do that. Not yet. Wait till Missouri does it, okay, guys? All right. Yeah. Much love. Much love to everybody. Hey, I just saw Animatronic in here. I just saw your message, brother. I will call you on Skype as soon as I get done talking in here now. I got to run downstairs and save the video on my channel, get it out as an update, and then I will be in touch with you very, very soon. Okay, so word up to all my people. Hope you have a good evening, morning, afternoon, or night, depending on where you are. Much love to all my English-speaking viewers, and tanto amore to my people in the Dutchsinse Italia room. You guys are all great. Thank you for being part of this. If you're new here, please subscribe. It's how I grow on YouTube. Peace out.